a documentary of the Philippine history on science and technology. Science and technology. It's something you can see, hear, and touch everywhere nowadays. Down to the music you listen to through your phone and earphones, to the tall skyscrapers you can see in major cities around the world. It started all the way when humans first struck stones against each other to create flame, crafting weapons to hunt with sharp stones tied to the end of long sticks. All the way to now, where human society now has easy access to electricity in order to see in the dark and feel warm throughout the cold nights. While the advancement of science and technology has greatly improved our way of life, how exactly does it help build a society to a nation? To find out, we need to take a closer look at our country and how it came to be what it is now. The Pre-Colonial Era. The pre-colonial era in the Philippines happened between 900 and 1521. It was a time when it was untouched and uninfluenced by mightier forces just yet. It was the era when the Philippines underwent healthy trades with cultures and economies in the region. It was around this time that science and technology were starting to make their way solidly into people's lives. Filipinos were already efficiently making use of the medicinal values within plants found in the area. There was also an alphabet, a writing system, numbering system, weighing system, and even a calendar as well at that point in time. Filipinos, even back then, were heavily into tasks such as mining, farming, shipbuilding, and weaving. It was their continued labor over these tasks that they created numerous inventions to help make their tasks easier. Tools such as the plow, weaver, and mining tools were essential. Another skill that Filipinos excelled at was shipbuilding. As well as navigation. The traditional Filipinos were known for many ships, such as the Balangay boat, Caracoa, Para, and the Vinta. Lastly, it was in this time period that the Philippines became home to a famous landmark, the Banawe rice terraces, which was said to mainly have been carved into the mountains of Banawe, Ifugao by hand. The Spanish regime. In the Philippines, Colonization is part its history and it contributed to the development of science and technology in the country. The Spanish colonial period in the Philippines started in 1521, when Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan arrived on the islands and claimed the islands as a Spanish colony. Spain had three objectives in its colonization of the Philippines: to acquire shares in the spice trade, to develop connections with China and Japan, to spread Christianity, and to convert the Filipinos to Christianity. It lasted for 333 years when Emilio Aguinaldo proclaimed himself as president of the country and declared the independence of the Philippines from Spain on June 12, 1898. It lasted for 333 years when Emilio Aguinaldo proclaimed himself as president of the country and declared the independence of the Philippines from Spain on June 12, 1898. Parish schools taught religion, reading, writing, arithmetic, and music, which until now is being commonly taught. Advanced methods in agriculture like sanitation were taught to the natives. Later, the Spanish established multiple colleges and universities, including the University of Santo Tomas. It was also reported by Spanish friars in the 1580s that astronomy was also being practiced, like providing local names to constellations, such as Moroporo for the Pleiades. The study of medicine was also a priority and biology was given emphasis during the Spanish era. The Spanish also built government buildings, churches, roads, bridges, and forts on the islands, contributing to the profession of engineering. The American regime. Science and technology in the Philippines advanced rapidly during the American regime. This was made possible by the simultaneous government encouragement and support for an extensive public education system. The granting of scholarships for higher education in science and engineering, the organization of science research agencies and establishment of science-based public services. Science during the American period was inclined towards agriculture, food processing, forestry, medicine, and pharmacy. Not much focus was given on the development of industrial technology due to free trade policy with the United States, which nurtured an economy geared towards agriculture and trade. The progress of science and technology in the Philippines continued under American rule of the islands. On July 1, 1901, the Philippine Commission established the Bureau of Government Laboratories, which was placed under the Department of Interior. The Bureau replaced the Laboratorio Municipal, which was established under the Spanish colonial era. The Bureau dealt with the study of tropical diseases and laboratory projects. On October 26, 1905, the Bureau of Government Laboratories was replaced by the Bureau of Science, and on December 8, 1933, the National Research Council of the Philippines was established. The Bureau of Science became the primary research center of the Philippines until World War II. Here are some of the technologies introduced to us during the American period. Communications. Communication devices like the wireless telegraph, telephone, radios, and movies were introduced to us by the Americans. Transportation. Carretela, also known as Kalisha, is a horse-drawn two-wheeled cart used commonly by the ilustrados for personal travels. During the American period, the city of Manila was teeming with carreteras, but these declined in popularity after the devastation of World War II. Aircraft. It was introduced by the Americans. The first use of aircrafts in the Philippines were during wars, especially against the Japanese. The Commonwealth Era. The Commonwealth of the Philippines was the administrative body that governed the Philippines from 1935 to 1946, aside from a period of exile in the Second World War from 1942 to 1945 when Japan occupied the country. In 1935, the Philippine Commonwealth was inaugurated and ushered in a period of transition to political independence. The Constitution acknowledged the importance of promoting scientific development for the economic development of the country by incorporating a provision, Article 13, Section 4, declaring that the state shall promote scientific research and invention, arts and letters shall be under its patronage. During the Commonwealth period, where a transitional government was established for Philippines' eventual independence, the Constitution actually acknowledged the importance of science and technology. Other government corporations and councils were created, such as the National Economic Council, National Power Corporation, National Development Company, and National Abaca and other fibers corporations. Here are the purposes of said corporations and council. National Economic Council. On November 15, 1935, the Commonwealth of the Philippines was inaugurated with Manuel L. Quezon as president, Sergio Osmeña as vice president, and a unicameral National Assembly as the legislature. One of the first acts of the President Manuel L. Quezon was to call for a special session of Congress to enact certain laws needed by the government. Under Commonwealth Act No. 2, enacted on December 23, 1935, an advisory body for economic concerns of the Philippines called the National Economic Council was tasked with advising the government on economic and financial matters, and formulate an economic program based on national independence. National Power Corporation. The National Power Corporation, Filipino, Pambansang Corporación sa Elektricidad, also known as NAPOCOR, NPC or National Power, is a Philippine government-owned and controlled corporation that is mandated to provide electricity to all rural areas of the Philippines by 2025, known as missionary electrification, to manage water resources for power generation, and to optimize the use of other power-generating assets. National Development Company, NDC, is mandated to pursue commercial, industrial, agricultural or mining ventures in order to give the necessary impetus to national economic development. NDC may on its own, or in joint venture with the private sector, undertake vital projects when necessary or when the private sector is not willing or able to undertake such projects due to high risks or to lack of funds or resources. National Abaca Corporation, Abaca, also known as Manila hemp with the scientific name Musa textilis, is a natural leaf fiber species of banana grown as a commercial crop native in the country. Its leaf stems are harvested for its strongest natural fiber that possesses valuable properties such as buoyancy, high porosity, high tensile and folding strength, and is resistant to saltwater damage. The Philippines, as the world's top exporter of abaca, supplies 85% of the global abaca fiber production and earns $80 million per year. The plant can effectively improve the water holding capacity of the soil, therefore it can prevent floods and landslides as well. Further, the abaca does not deplete soil as much as other plants and requires less land for its production. abaca waste materials are used as organic fertilizer by farmers. How about a short recap? The different periods and eras that the Philippines has grown through shows that it is a country rich in history. Due to its vast amount of information, there were a lot of things to choose from when thinking of presenting the period and its achievements, so to say. In the pre-colonial period, the people of the Philippines have made it their livelihood to farm, mine, and to build ships to cross the multiple islands the Philippine archipelago has to offer. Because of this, they attained knowledge on crops and plants for food and even medicinal purposes. They gained the skill to craft some of the best shipwright fundamentals to keep their rafts and boats afloat. And lastly, they managed to create a well-known landmark today, the Banawe rice terraces, a grand display of carving fields and crops on a mountainside. In the Spanish regime, under the heavy occupation and influence of the Spanish, we improved upon our education in language, science, and math, greatly improving the abilities and knowledge of Filipinos as time went on. This gave the foundation for numerous schools and similar establishments to be created and founded. It was largely thanks to this that the Filipinos managed to hone their knowledge of science and improve their practice on engineering, medicinal professions, and more. In the American regime, under the influence of the Americans, Filipinos underwent major remodeling of their economic standpoint, introducing more major technologies used for communications such as telegraphs and telephones, and new modes of transportation such as the jeep, which was later evolved into what we now use today known as jeepneys. The improving of accountancy and banking, creating imports and exports, and further developing their agricultural fields and pharmacies in the Philippines. In the Commonwealth period, under the occupation and influence of the Japanese, it was around this time that science and technology, and its further research and improvement, was taken into the limelight and created several divisions and departments, for it brought the further development into focus and allowed for Filipinos to greatly thrive in the aftermath of this decision. With the power of electricity, with the assistance of technology, with the existence of the Internet of Things, all of this was made possible through the efforts of this nation to grow and strive for a better life. Even if the many bright minds and scientists in the Philippines weren't responsible for discovering these things, we still have them to thank for learning, adapting, and bringing it to the people of our small nation. Science and technology have progressed leaps and bounds through the ages, and they will only keep on discovering and improving. And while the Philippines only allowed a slight glimpse into the world of science and technology, it still reflects the chase of knowledge all people inherently have. It is akin to an instinct that we crave to know and understand more. Some speculate that this is due to Homo sapiens having the incredible ability to understand and perceive things, unlike other animals. It is in our nature to naturally hone our weapons to help survive and cultivate ourselves in this world. In seeing all of this information in a single place, we question whether or not the advancement and improvement of science and technology throughout the years have affected the building of the nation to what we know it as today. From the era of our independence, the further development of science and technology was prioritized in national development. This ushered in the growth and further implementation of science and technological subjects in the education department, later on evolving to applied sciences and additional funds for educational research purposes. Further down the years, in 1986, President Cory Aquino made it possible for the Department of Science and Technology to represent the cabinet, solidifying its existence and importance to the country's development. Now, we have many Republic Acts that help give incentives to scientists and brilliant minds around the country to encourage them to pursue a degree or education in the fields of science and technology.